moving from security to cybersecurity, our next speaker, let me tell you, he's one of the brightest minds in cybersecurity globally, and I think one of the brightest minds here in Czech Republic, period. Please welcome Ondřej Vlček, who's coming here to tell you about his new project, which I believe is the next unicorn. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So it's been a long day. I think, are you tired? How are you doing? It's almost 7 o'clock. So please bear with me. This is the last talk of the day, I understand. So this is a really important subject that I'll be talking about. So please bear with me. And what I'm going to talk about today is cybersecurity. So I think by now, most people realize that cybersecurity has become a really, really important subject. Based on the FBI data, the damage caused by cybercrime now is actually larger than the damage caused by drug trafficking and human trafficking combined, and it's only going up. And the reason for that is that the complexity of the systems that power today's society, today's enterprises, today's organizations, as well as consumer tech, are increasingly prone to attacks. That is, the complexity is actually is bringing attackers that are then given the opportunity to somehow exploit the problems that exist. And as we keep piling up new technologies, new stacks, new AI codes, etc., that complexity only increases, which unfortunately also means it makes the lives of the attackers somewhat easier. So just a few things I would like to pinpoint here. 2/3 of all cyber attacks that are happening today are actually due to a misuse or exploitation of a known bug, of a known vulnerability that exists somewhere in the software. So let that sink. 2/3, that is more than 70%, could have been prevented if that bug, if that vulnerability, if that gap in the system had been prevented before, but it was not. For some reason, it was not. And that's a real problem. And also, the attackers, of course, know that. That is, they are effectively focusing their effort on exploiting those gaps that exist. And so you see this great disconnect between the 45 days it takes on average to fix such a vulnerability and 5 days that it takes the bad guys to somehow exploit it. And that window is actually keeps opening. That is, it's taking longer and longer because of that complexity to fix those things. And at the same time, it's taking shorter and shorter for the bad guys to actually find it and exploit it. So it's a pretty critical situation that we are living here, and something has to be done about that. And that is really the foundation of the idea that we came up with and the new company that we started about a year ago, which is called ISLE, that is trying to tackle this problem by creating an autonomous agentic system that will be able to find those vulnerabilities and, even more importantly, to fix them in a matter of not 45 days, but more like hours or minutes, maybe seconds into the future. So that means that it has to be fully autonomous, clearly, because once you introduce humans into the equation, then it will undoubtedly take at least hours, if not days and more. And also, it has to be somehow proven and tested, because all these systems that run in our critical infrastructure need to maintain business continuity, need to be always reliable. And so you can't allow the agentic flows to actually break that. So the reliability, the verification, the sort of continuity that is provided by the system is an absolute must, but still the speed, the superhuman speed and scale and depth that we can bring into this is what makes the difference, and that what makes, that kind of skews the equation back to the side of the defenders and makes the bad actors' lives miserable. What I want to talk about, though, is not necessarily just what we are building, but also how we are building it. Because we are building a global, new, ambitious startup here. And I think for the audience, it might be actually quite interesting to kind of look under the hood a little bit and get some understanding of what's going on. So first of all, we are 3 co-founders. So besides myself, I've got a great co-founder in Jaya Bellu, who is our COO, or Chief Operating Officer. But she is a well-known, world-class security expert. She was my CISO at Avast. That's how we got to know each other. But before that, she was the CISO, or CISO stands for Chief Information Security Officer, which is basically head of IT security. Before that, she was the CISO of KPN Telecom, which is the incumbent Dutch telco. And also, she has got some experience from other American companies. So that's Jaya on our management or founding team. Equally important is Stan, or Stanislav Ford, who is the second co-founder, who doesn't have much background in cybersecurity, but has a really strong background in AI. As his name suggests, he's actually Czech. That is, he was born in a small village in southern Bohemia, but he has not spent the last, I think, 11 or 12 years in the Czech Republic because he was very active on the global scene. He has a PhD in AI from Stanford, and he was lucky enough to work for some of these most innovative and most important AI companies in existence, most notably Google DeepMind and Anthropic. Anthropic is the author of Claude, the foundational model that many of you are using. And Stan was employee number 14 or 15 at that company very early on and helped build Claude version 1. So really strong founding team that kind of brings together the experience from both cybersecurity, global operations, as well as AI. The other thing I want to say is that the original plan was that we would basically have the R&D team that would be primarily based in the Czech Republic. This is where 2 of the 3 founders are based, and it made a lot of sense. At the same time, as we started building, we already found out that this snowball effect of people bringing more people and A players bringing more A players, we can't confine this to just one country. So already in our 35 people team, we've got basically people from Poland, the Netherlands, UK, and the US who are together building this solution. And we expect to have even more people as we go into the future. Now, on the go-to-market side, we are basically heavily focused on the US. And the reason for that is that we are targeting large enterprise companies. And even though these large enterprise companies may have some local presences, they typically, today, the reality is that the vast majority, at least in the Western Hemisphere, are based out of the US. And so their decision makers are also sitting in the US, hence we have to be there as well. Now, the third thing, though, which I think is quite interesting and we did not foresee when we were founding the company, is our footprint in Israel. We found out that, the level of talent and the talent density, especially in cybersecurity per se, is unprecedented in Israel. We kind of knew that. Israel, as a country that has similar population to Czech Republic, about 10 million, is absolute powerhouse when it comes to global cyber. And already out of that 35 people that we have, 3 are based out of Israel, and we are really creating crews in that country, including people who have IDF or Israeli Defense Forces background, including Unit 8200, which is their cybersecurity unit. This is just like a sneak peek of the companies and of the schools, universities that our team went to, which is like gives you some sense that we are really shooting for the top talent that we can find. Now, of course, not everyone kind of brings a diploma from Cambridge or Stanford. That's not necessarily needed, but we have the density of the talent that is needed to push everyone forward and to somehow, as a combination, as an overall organization, to actually make a difference on the global scene. I'm a big believer in that saying that when you build a company, actually culture is everything. You need to have great business plan, you need to have a great strategy, you need to execute very strongly, but if you don't have the right culture of collaboration, somehow culture of people bringing their best to work and somehow helping each other, empowering and motivating, inspiring each other, you can't really be successful in the long term. So from the get-go, we try to actually set up that whole cultural system for the company in a way that would be with us not just in the first phase, but actually survive as we grow, as we kind of go through all the scaling challenges that every company has to go through, and really do that very early so that people then become the champions of the culture as the company grows and it becomes very, very natural as opposed to something that you implant later on. The other thing is building an AI-first company. This is 2025. I think everyone who's starting a new company should think about it as an AI-first or AI-native company. I think it would be a mistake and lost opportunity if you didn't. And so for us, that means first and foremost that all the processes and all the infrastructure and all the ways of working are set up in a way that basically allow people and AI agents or AI technologies to work together in a seamless way. I could be talking about this subject with a separate talk, but of course we don't have the time to do that. Very quickly here, the idea really resonates, and one of the proof points of that resonance for us is the incredible backers or angel investors and advisors that we were able to attract to ISLE. So first and foremost, Jeff Dean, who is one of the prime scientists in computer science, is the founder of Google Brain, holds hundreds of patents and is actually right now the chief scientist of Google, paid from his own pocket an angel investment in ISLE. So did Aparna, who is the chief product officer of Microsoft, and some of these other names that you see here, again, high-profile international figures who are super active on the IT, global IT scene, have invested in ISLE in the beginning from their own pockets. Lastly, I would say we are not the only ones. Obviously, we are not the only ones who had this idea. That is the idea of creating autonomous agents that would fix security problems or that would fix vulnerabilities. That idea was coined by many parallel teams. One of them was actually the US DARPA, that was already mentioned on the previous panel. That stands for Defense Advanced Research Program Agency. When they started already in 2023, a public competition or challenge that they called AICC or AI Cyber Challenge, where they asked teams, commercial teams, as well as academic teams to participate on solving this problem. There were about 140 teams that participated. At the end, 7 finalists. The point I'm trying to make is that right now we are heavily involved with the responsible people at DARPA who are actually advising us and helping us to build ISLE into what it needs to be, as well as we have hired some key individuals from the winning teams to participate, to become members, full-time members of our staff. So really excited about that. The last thing I would say is that when we started all of this, we didn't quite know whether it would work out. I mean, that was quite a, I would say, adventure. When we embarked on last November, December, we had a bunch of hypotheses that kind of we believed that this could work, but no one has done this before in a proper way. And so for the first, let's say, 9 months of existence, it was this very, very weird feeling of whether it would ever work, we would be able to somehow build it in a way that would make a difference. And only in August this year, we really started seeing the first fruits. And since then, it's been on fire. So for us, probably the biggest proof or the evidence is to find new vulnerabilities in large scale and high profile open source repositories. So the software that is powering our today's critical infrastructure, like the Linux kernel, like OpenSSL, which is the key encryption library in the Linux kernel, SQLite is kind of one of the most important and heavily used databases in this world, Apache, which is the web server that everyone, kind of half of the internet runs on, etc. And I'm glad to say that just over the last 3 or 4 months, we have been able to find critical zero-day vulnerabilities in every single one of those repositories and fix them, report them responsibly, and get credit for that. So that to me is like a the greatest proof point and endorsement that we can get that actually, evidence of the technology working. So before I wrap up, I just wanted to sort of play a short video that we shot for our sort of process of going out of stealth that kind of brings it to life in a slightly more cinematic way. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Let's play.
Tonight about the scope of a massive cyber attack.
America under virtual invasion.
The so-called heartbleed bug have rattled many internet
that
users
could affect
this week.
hundreds of millions of people.
The numbers don't lie. Last year, we saw more than 40,000 new vulnerabilities discovered. We're probably talking millions and millions of those that are still to be discovered.
It's very likely that this is just the tip of the iceberg. The critical physical infrastructure of the world could be way worse.
Unfortunately for us, vulnerabilities today are like this exponential growth in all of the products and services you use.
These vulnerabilities are very varied. Privilege escalation for the attacker, denial of service, SQL injection. Even describing exactly what happens in these cases is a pretty tough job.
There's a whole industry that emerged that involves millions of people who benefit from this thing. It's giant, it's gigantic. There have been some estimates that about 10 million people around the world are involved in cybercrime. Discovery tools that companies use today are very outdated. More than 90% of their output is false positives.
CVSS, EPSS, SSVC. So with all of those different scoring systems, trying to make sense about which thing do I do first becomes very, very difficult. Unfortunately, a lot of that is still a manual effort.
We can do better than that.
It's not even a question that a defense has to use AI. The offense is likely using AI for sure.
To take this to minutes, seconds, not just 10% improvement, to kind of completely redesign and reinvent how vulnerability management should be done. Having access to raw intelligence as sort of a utility is probably the most revolutionary thing that ever happened to any species.
And we're actually adding a key player to that security team to help them elevate into an area that they can't by being as autonomous as possible.
If we succeed by the time the offensive actor comes, everything has been patched already.
It also means that we have no backlog. So no old vulnerabilities, the ability to keep pace with new ones very, very quickly.
So zero is this magical concept. It's a very special concept, very unnatural to humans until recently.
When it comes to vulnerabilities, the dream, the holy grail would be zero.
It's our duty, given the exponential trajectory we're seeing, to defend our civilizational infrastructure. The moment has come where the AI tooling at our disposal is capable of actually making a meaningful difference. And I think, it has to be done.
And we'll do it.
Yeah.